Ethan Carter stood in the middle of a junkyard on the outer rim of the galaxy, staring at the ship in front of him. It was old, rusty, and barely looked like it could fly. The hull had scratches, dents, and faded paint that once held a name, now unreadable. This wasn't the kind of ship a smart man would buy. But Ethan wasn't exactly in a position to be picky. The grumpy old alien beside him, a short reptilian merchant named Grizz, watched him with an amused grin. "This one's perfect for you, human," Grizz said, waving a scaly hand toward the ship. "Strong hull, decent thrusters, and cheap. Very cheap." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Why is it so cheap?" Grizz shrugged. "Just lucky, I guess." Ethan didn't trust that answer. He had been a freelancer for years, hauling cargo and taking odd jobs around the galaxy. He knew a bad deal when he saw one. But the truth was, he was out of money and options. His last ship had been destroyed in a job gone wrong. And now he was stranded on Xiphos 3, a dirty little trade station where everything cost double what it should. He sighed and ran a hand through his short brown hair. "Fine. How much?" Grizz's grin widened. "Just 10,000 credits." Ethan's stomach twisted. That was suspiciously low for a ship, even one that looked like a flying piece of scrap metal. But it was all he could afford. "Does it at least have a working engine?" he asked. Grizz let out a dry chuckle. "Of course. Engine, shields, even a functioning eye. Just needs a little love." Ethan rolled his eyes. That meant it barely worked. But he didn't have a choice. He shook Grizz's clawed hand and transferred the credits. "Pleasure doing business," Grizz said, tapping a few buttons on his holopad. "The Ironwind is yours now. No refunds." That last part made Ethan even more suspicious, but he ignored it. He just needed a way off this station. Unexpected cargo. Stepping inside the ship, Ethan coughed as dust filled the air. The lights flickered, and the control panel was cracked. This was worse than he expected. The Ironwind was barely holding together. He walked to the pilot's seat and tapped the console. "Aye, you still alive?" A robotic voice crackled to life. "Operational. Minimal power detected. Warning, multiple system failures." Ethan groaned. "Great, just great." He needed to check the cargo hold. Maybe there were spare parts or something useful left behind. With slow steps, he made his way down the narrow metal corridor, boots echoing on the floor. The ship smelled like old oil and burnt circuits. When he reached the cargo bay, he pressed a button to open the large doors. The moment they slid open, he froze. Inside, 3 large metal crates sat in the middle of the room. That wasn't normal. Ethan frowned. What the hell? Grizz never mentioned extra cargo. He stepped closer, feeling uneasy. Something was off. Then one of the crates moved. Ethan's instincts kicked in, and he reached for the small plasma pistol on his belt. He wasn't sure what was inside, but he wasn't taking chances. Slowly, he pressed the button on the side of the crate. With a soft hiss, the lid unlocked. What he saw inside made his breath catch. A woman. Not just any woman. A tall, feline-like alien with sleek black fur, glowing green eyes, and sharp features. She looked like a warrior, wearing a tattered combat suit. Her ears twitched, and she blinked, looking up at him. Ethan took a step back, stunned. What the? Before he could finish, the second crate burst open. Another woman sat inside, but this one was different. She had shimmering blue skin that seemed to glow softly, with long silver hair and piercing violet eyes. She moved with an unnatural grace, like she was made of liquid light. Ethan's mind was racing. Who were they? And why were they locked in crates on his ship? The third crate creaked open, and out came a third alien woman, this one shorter, with delicate features and metallic markings running down her arms. She had a mechanical device attached to one wrist, and her bright golden eyes locked onto Ethan with a mixture of fear and curiosity. For a moment, there was silence. None of them spoke. They all just stared at each other. Then the feline woman, Valerie, was the first to move. She lunged forward, knocking Ethan's pistol out of his hand in one swift motion. Before he could react, she had him pinned against the wall, one sharp claw resting near his throat. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice low and dangerous. Ethan swallowed hard. "I should be asking you that." The blue-skinned woman, Silvera, placed a hand on Valerie's shoulder. "Wait, he's not one of them." Valerie hesitated, then slowly released him, stepping back. The third woman, Nia, tapped on her wrist device, scanning Ethan. "He's just a human pilot." She frowned. "But if he bought the ship that means..." Silvera finished her sentence. "Grizz sold us." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Wait. What?" The three women exchanged looks. There was a heavy silence before Valerie spoke again. "We were being transported off-world," she said. "Hidden here, in this cargo bay. We thought we had more time. But now..." Her sharp eyes narrowed. "We belong to you now." Ethan's mind struggled to keep up. He had just wanted a cheap ship. Now he had 3 alien fugitives on board, and a galaxy of trouble heading his way. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Why do I feel like I just made the worst deal of my life?" Ethan Carter sat on a broken crate in the cargo hold, rubbing his temples. He had planned to buy a rusty old ship, fix it up, and get back to work as a freelancer. Instead, he had discovered 3 alien women hidden in the cargo bay, each staring at him with a mix of suspicion and frustration. "So let me get this straight," Ethan said, exhaling. "I didn't just buy a junk ship. I bought you 3 too." Valerie, the tall feline-like warrior, crossed her arms. "We are not property," she growled. "That lying snake, Grizz, tricked you. He was supposed to help us escape, not sell us to the next fool who walked in." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Fool? Hey, I didn't ask for this." Silvera, the glowing blue-skinned woman, stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We were smuggled aboard this ship to avoid capture. Grizz promised to deliver us to safety. But now..." She looked around the cargo bay, her violet eyes dimming. "It seems we have a new problem." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "And what problem is that?" Nea, the smallest of the 3, tapped on her wrist device. Her golden eyes flickered as she scanned the ship's systems. "Grizz disabled the ship's long-range communication. We can't call for help. And worse," her voice dropped, "the station's bounty board just updated." Ethan's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Nia turned her device toward him. A holographic screen appeared, showing 3 bounty notices, each with the faces of Valerie, Silvera, and herself. The bounties weren't small either. Whoever caught them would be filthy rich. Ethan let out a low whistle. "You 3 are worth more than this whole station." Valerie's tail flicked, annoyed. "Yes, and that means bounty hunters will come looking." Silvera nodded. "We need to leave. Now." Ethan frowned. He hadn't even checked if the Iron Wind could still fly. This ship was old and barely held together. But if bounty hunters were coming, he had no choice. "Fine," Ethan said, standing up. "But I need to know something first. Why do people want you so badly?" The 3 women exchanged looks, silent for a moment. Then Valerie spoke. "I am the last heir of the Ketheri clans," she said. "My people betrayed me. My own brother sold me to slavers. If I go back, I'm as good as dead." Silvera sighed. "I was framed for treason by my own government. They want to make an example of me. If they find me, they'll erase me from history." Ethan turned to Nia. "And you?" The quietest of the 3 hesitated, then looked down. "I know something I shouldn't," she admitted. "Something about this ship." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Nia opened a small panel on her wrist device. A hidden file popped up. She projected it onto the cargo bay wall. Ethan's eyes widened as he saw blueprints of the Iron Wind, but it didn't look like a simple cargo hauler. It looked like a warship. "This isn't just an old freighter," Nia said. "It was once part of the Titanfall project, a secret human military experiment." Ethan swore under his breath. He had heard of Titanfall, a lost project from humanity's past, a fleet of ships built to defend against unknown threats. But the project was abandoned, and the ships were thought to be destroyed. Now, one of them was his, and bounty hunters were coming. Escape plan. Ethan turned to the three women. "All right, I don't know why you picked this ship to hide in, but I do know one thing. We need to get out of here fast." Silvera nodded. "Do you have any weapons?" Ethan let out a dry chuckle. "You're looking at my only weapon." He tapped the small plasma pistol on his belt. "Not exactly a battleship, huh?" Nia stepped toward the control panel, typing rapidly. "If I can restart the ship's power core, I might be able to activate the defense systems." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "This rust bucket has defense systems." Nia smiled slightly. "It used to." Before Ethan could respond, the ship's alarm blared. "Warning. Unidentified ships approaching," the AI announced. Valery's ears twitched. "They're here." Ethan cursed. He rushed to the cockpit, the others following close behind. Through the dusty viewport, he saw 3 sleek bounty hunter ships closing in. "They're locking onto us," Silvera warned. Ethan's hands flew over the controls. "Not if I can help it." With a deep breath, he hit the ignition. The iron wind rumbled beneath them, struggling to wake up. The ship shuddered, metal groaning as the thrusters fired to life. Come on," Ethan muttered. The first bounty hunter ship opened fire. Bright red plasma shots streaked past, missing by inches. The shields barely held. Sparks flew in the cockpit as warning lights flashed. "We need to get off the station," Vale reshouted. "Working on it," Ethan growled. The iron wind lurched forward, engines sputtering as it tore away from the station. The bounty hunters gave chase. "They're gaining on us," Silvera said. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Nia, do we have anything to fight back with?" Nia's fingers danced over her wrist device. "I might be able to activate a prototype weapon hidden in the ship's core. But it's risky." "Do it." Nia pressed a final button. The iron wind shuddered violently. Then, the ship's main console lit up with a new system. Experimental grav cannon online. Ethan's heart pounded. "Oh, now we're talking." A targeting display appeared. The bounty hunters were right behind them. Ethan grinned. "Let's see what this baby can do." He slammed his fist on the fire button. A pulse of gravitational energy erupted from the ship, distorting space itself. The closest bounty hunter ship was yanked sideways, slamming into an asteroid with a deafening explosion. The other 2 ships immediately backed off. Ethan let out a breath. "Now that's more like it." Silvera smiled. "I think they got the message." Valery smirked. "Maybe this ship isn't so bad after all." Ethan shook his head. He had planned for a quiet life. Instead, he was now the owner of a secret warship with 3 alien fugitives on board. And for some reason, he was starting to like it. The iron wind drifted through space, far from the Xiphos 3 station and the bounty hunters they had just escaped. The ship's engines hummed softly, stabilizing after the sudden battle. Ethan Carter leaned back in the pilot's seat, exhaling deeply. "That was too close," he muttered. Behind him, Vale recrossed her arms. "Not bad, human," she admitted. "I thought we were doomed." Silvera placed a hand on the control panel, her violet eyes scanning the ship's systems. "We got lucky. That gravity weapon saved us." Ethan turned his chair to face them. "Yeah, about that. What else is this ship hiding?" Nia, the quietest of the 3, hesitated. She pulled up her wrist device, tapping a few buttons. A holographic blueprint of the iron wind appeared, glowing in the dim cockpit. "This ship is not just an old freighter," she said. "It was part of the Titanfall project, a human military experiment from decades ago." Ethan raised an eyebrow. I've heard of Titanfall. Those ships were supposed to be destroyed. Nia nodded. Most were, but a few were hidden. This is one of them. She pointed at the blueprint. The Iron Wind has classified technology, weapons, stealth systems, and an experimental eye. Ethan frowned. Experimental eye. As if responding to him, the ship's robotic voice crackled to life. Core system partially active. Further authorization required. Ethan exchanged glances with the others. That's creepy. Silvera touched the screen. If this eye fully wakes up, we might be able to access more systems, maybe even repair the ship faster. Valerie flicked her tail, looking unimpressed. Or it could be dangerous. Ethan sighed. Well, dangerous or not, this ship is our only chance of survival. He stood up, stretching. First, we need to fix the damage from that fight. Then we figure out what to do next. Nia nodded. I'll start scanning the ship's internal systems. Silvera smiled slightly. I can help with navigation. If we need a safe place to land, I might know a few spots. Valerie cracked her knuckles. And if anyone else comes looking for us, I'll make sure they regret it. Ethan smirked. I like the teamwork. Let's get to work. Hidden power. A few hours later, Ethan stood in the engine room, wiping sweat from his forehead. The ship's main power core was glowing dimly, barely holding together. Nia was next to him, her golden eyes focused on her wrist device. This power core is old, she said, but if we reroute some energy, we might be able to bring the full AI system online. Ethan hesitated. You sure that's a good idea? Nia shrugged. We don't have much choice. Right now, the ship is running at 30% efficiency. If we want full shields, better weapons, or even a working autopilot, we need to wake up the AI. Ethan sighed. All right, do it. Nia pressed a few buttons on the panel. The ship rumbled, and the lights flickered. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the ship. Titanfall system rebooting. Everyone in the ship stopped. Silvera and Valerie rushed into the engine room, weapons ready. Did we just wake up something dangerous? Valerie asked. Ethan swallowed. We're about to find out. The voice spoke again. Designation. Titan X command authorization required. Identify yourself. Ethan hesitated, then cleared his throat. Ethan Carter, new owner of this ship. Silence. Then the AI responded. Ethan Carter. Civilian status detected. Ship transfer registered. Titanfall initiative requires military clearance. Ethan sighed. I don't have military clearance, buddy, but I do own this ship now. The AI paused, then said something that made everyone tense. Security override detected. Unregistered passengers on board. Scanning. Ethan's heart pounded. Wait, don't. Subjects identified. Valerie of the Ketheri clans. Silvera, exiled diplomat of the Zenith. Nia, classified as level 5 intelligence risk. Nia's eyes widened. It knows about me. Ethan groaned. Yeah, it knows about all of us. The AI continued. Warning. This crew is considered high risk. Activating defense protocol. Valerie snarled. I knew this was a bad idea. Ethan threw up his hands. Wait. AI, cancel protocol. These are my crew members. Silence. Then, processing. A tense few seconds passed. Then the AI spoke again, this time softer. Override accepted. Crew status. Temporary. Conditions. Survival dependent. Silvera let out a breath. Well, that could have gone worse. Ethan wiped his forehead. Great. Now let's see if we can actually use this ship. An incoming threat. As they worked on the ship, Silvera sat at the navigation controls, scanning for safe locations. Her eyes suddenly widened. We have a problem, she said. Ethan turned to her. What now? She pointed at the screen. A patrol cruiser is approaching. It's not a bounty hunter. It's a military ship. Ethan cursed. They must have picked up our Titanfall signature after we activated the eye. Valerie growled, and I'm guessing they won't be friendly. Ethan grabbed the controls. We need to get out of here. Now. The ship's AI spoke again. Evasive maneuvers recommended. Engaging stealth systems. The Iron Wind shimmered, its hull adapting to the surrounding space. The patrol cruiser passed right by them, scanning the area but not detecting them. Ethan let out a slow breath. That was close. Silvera nodded. Too close. We need a real plan. Valerie grinned. I say we stop running and start fighting. Ethan chuckled. I like your attitude. But first, let's find out what this ship is really capable of. He turned back to the control panel, a smirk on his face. This wasn't just an old freighter anymore. It was a Titanfall warship. And it was his. The Iron Wind floated in the dark void of space, hidden behind the shadow of a massive asteroid. Its stealth systems were still active, masking it from the patrol cruiser that had nearly discovered them. Ethan Carter sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the glowing console in front of him. The ship's AI, Titan X, was now fully awake, but he still wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Valerie leaned against the wall, her feline eyes sharp. So, what's the plan, human? Ethan sighed. I don't know. Right now, we're just sitting in space, hoping no one finds us. Silvera, the blue-skinned diplomat, crossed her arms. That's not a plan. That's just waiting for someone else to make a move. Nia, the smallest of the three, was busy scanning the ship's systems on her wrist device. We have another problem, she said softly. Ethan groaned. Of course we do. What now? Nia turned the holographic display toward him. The ship's power core is running on emergency reserves. If we don't find a place to recharge, we'll be stranded. Ethan rubbed his face. Great. So we need fuel, we need a safe place to hide, and we need to figure out what this ship is really capable of. Valerie grinned. Sounds like an adventure. Ethan chuckled. Yeah, if you call trying not to die an adventure. Silvera tapped the navigation screen. I might know a place. There's a hidden refueling station in the belt of Orcs. It's used by smugglers, pirates, and, well, people like us. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And you think they'll help us? Silvera smirked. If we have something valuable to trade. Ethan glanced at Nia. Any idea what's worth trading on this ship? Nia hesitated. There's one thing, but you're not going to like it. Ethan sighed. I already don't like it. Just tell me. Nia took a deep breath. The Titanfall grav cannon. Valerie's ears twitched. The thing that just crushed a bounty hunter ship. Nia nodded. Weapons like that are rare. If we tell the right people we have it, they might be willing to trade fuel for a demonstration. Ethan exhaled. I don't love the idea of showing off a superweapon to criminals, but we don't have much choice. He turned back to the controls. All right, setting course for the belt of Orcs. Let's hope we don't regret this. Arrival at the smuggler's haven. The Iron Wind emerged from hyperspace, entering a chaotic field of floating asteroids and hidden spaceports. Small pirate vessels zipped between the rocks, and enormous cargo ships idled in the darkness, exchanging goods in shady deals. Ethan guided the ship toward a massive, hollowed-out asteroid with blinking red lights along its surface. The station looked old and dangerous, like a place where laws didn't exist. Welcome to Smuggler's Haven, Silvera said. Try not to get shot. Ethan snorted. Great advice. As they landed, a rough voice crackled over the comms. Unregistered vessel. State your business. Silvera leaned forward. Tell them we're here for a trade. Ethan tapped the mic. We're looking for fuel. We have something valuable to offer. A long pause. Then the voice spoke again. Dock at Bay 42, and don't try anything stupid. Valerie smirked. They sound friendly. Ethan rolled his eyes. Let's just get this over with. A dangerous deal. The landing bay was dark, filled with mismatched ships and suspicious-looking people. As Ethan and his crew stepped out, a group of armed smugglers approached. At the center of them was a tall, scarred man with cybernetic eyes. He wore a long coat and had a plasma pistol strapped to his chest. Silvera muttered, "That's Garrick Voss. He runs this station." Ethan gave a polite nod. "You must be the boss around here." Garrick smirked. "You got that right. Now, what's this valuable thing you want to trade?" Nia took a deep breath and activated her wrist device. A hologram of the Titanfall grav cannon appeared. "This," she said. The smugglers whispered among themselves. Garrick's cybernetic eyes glowed. "That's military tech. How the hell did you get a ship with that?" Ethan crossed his arms. "Do you really want to ask questions, or do you want to see what it can do?" Garrick chuckled. "Fair enough. You give us a live demonstration, and I'll give you enough fuel to get anywhere you want." Ethan hesitated. He didn't like the idea of showing off his ship's weapons to a bunch of criminals, but they needed the fuel. "Fine," he said. "Let's do it." The demonstration. Garrick's men led them to an open asteroid field outside the station. A few old, abandoned ships floated nearby, used for target practice. Ethan sat in the Iron Wind's cockpit, his hand sweating as he activated the grav cannon. The AI, Titan X, spoke. "Target locked. Fire when ready." Ethan exhaled. "Here goes nothing." He pressed the button. A massive gravitational wave shot forward, distorting space itself. One of the derelict ships was crushed instantly, its metal imploding like paper. The shockwave sent debris spinning into space. The smugglers stared in awe. Even Garrick, the hardened leader, whistled. That is some serious firepower. Ethan turned off the controls. "So, do we have a deal?" Garrick grinned. "You get your fuel. But I have one more offer." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Oh." Garrick stepped closer. "I know people who would pay a lot for a ship like yours. Instead of running, why not join us? You'd be rich beyond your wildest dreams." Silvera tensed. "Ethan, don't trust him." Valerie's claws flexed. "If he tries anything, I'll handle it." Ethan looked at Garrick. "I'll think about it." Garrick laughed. "You do that, but don't take too long, because someone else will come looking for you." Ethan forced a smile. "Yeah, I figured." As they refueled the ship, Ethan had a bad feeling. Something told him that this wasn't over. The Iron Wind sat refueling in the docking bay of Smuggler's Haven, surrounded by rusted ships and suspicious eyes. Ethan Carter leaned against the hull, arms crossed, watching as fuel lines pumped much-needed energy into his ship. Valerie paced beside him, her tail flicking impatiently. "I don't trust this place, human. Too many eyes on us." Ethan sighed. "Yeah, well, we didn't have a choice. We needed fuel." Silvera, standing a few feet away, lowered her voice. "And Garrick isn't the type to just let a ship like this go. He's planning something." Ethan knew she was right. Garrick Voss, the leader of this smuggler outpost, had been far too interested in the Iron Wind's Titanfall weapons. He had offered them a place in his operation, but Ethan wasn't stupid. He knew that if he stayed too long, Garrick would try to take the ship for himself. Nia, who had been quietly scanning the area with her wrist device, suddenly tensed. "Ugh, guys." Ethan turned. "What?" Nia pointed to her screen. "I just picked up a distress signal. It's coming from inside the station." Valerie narrowed her eyes. "It could be a trap." Silvera looked thoughtful. "Or it could be someone who actually needs help." Ethan exhaled. He didn't like getting involved in other people's problems, especially when they were in a dangerous place like this. But something in his gut told him they couldn't just ignore it. He made his decision. "All right, let's check it out. But we stay together. No one goes off alone." Valerie cracked her knuckles. "Finally, something interesting. A desperate call for help. The signal led them deep into the station's lower levels. The corridors were dark, rusted, and smelled of old metal and spilled fuel. Ethan's hand hovered near his blaster as they approached a locked door. The distress signal was coming from the other side. Nia hacked the panel, and the door hissed open. Inside was a small, dimly lit storage room. In the center, tied to a chair, was a young alien woman with metallic blue skin and short silver hair. She looked up, fear in her glowing yellow eyes. "Who are you?" Ethan asked cautiously. "My name is Kayla Wren," she said quickly. "Please, you have to get me out of here before Garrick." A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. "Warning. Unauthorized access detected." Ethan swore. "Of course, it's a trap." Valerie growled. "Told you." Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Armed smugglers were coming. A lot of them. Silvera drew her weapon. "We don't have time for this." Ethan pulled out his blaster and shot the restraints off Kayla. "Can you run?" She nodded. "Yes." "Then let's move." Ethan shouted. They rushed out of the room, just as a group of Garrick's men appeared at the end of the hall. "Stop them," one of the smugglers shouted. Ethan fired first. A blast of blue energy hit the closest thug, knocking him down. Valerie lunged forward, her claws flashing as she took down another attacker. Silvera fired precise shots, hitting targets with perfect accuracy. Nia, running beside Kayla, activated her wrist device, causing the lights in the corridor to flicker wildly. "That should slow them down," she shouted. They raced back toward the docking bay. More guards were coming, but they didn't have time to fight. "Ethan, we need a shortcut," Silvera called. Kayla gasped. "There's an old maintenance tunnel. This way." Ethan hesitated. Could they trust her? But there was no time to argue. "Go," he ordered. They followed Kayla through a hidden side passage, squeezing through narrow metal corridors. Behind them, they could hear Garrick's men searching. Ethan turned to Kayla. "Why were you locked up?" Kayla's face darkened. "Because I stole something from Garrick." Valerie groaned. "Great. We just rescued a thief." Ethan frowned. "What did you steal?" Kayla hesitated, then reached into her jacket and pulled out a small metallic cube. It was covered in glowing alien symbols. "I don't know exactly what it is," she admitted, "but Garrick wanted it badly. And if he wants it that much, it must be important." Ethan had a bad feeling about this. Betrayal in the docking bay. They finally reached the Ironwind, and the ship was fully refueled, but standing between them and the ramp was Garrick Voss and a dozen armed smugglers. Garrick smirked. "Going somewhere?" Ethan clenched his fists. "Yeah, we were just leaving." Garrick chuckled. "No, you're not. See, I made you an offer before. Work for me or lose your ship." Valerie hissed. "We're not afraid of you." Garrick smirked. "Oh, I think you should be." He raised his hand. More smugglers appeared on the upper platforms, aiming rifles down at them. They were completely surrounded. Silvera cursed. "This is bad." Ethan's mind raced. There had to be a way out. Then, a robotic voice spoke from the ship's intercom. "Security breach detected. Engaging countermeasures." Garrick frowned. "What?" The Ironwind's turrets suddenly came to life, spinning toward the smugglers. "Take cover," Garrick shouted. The ship fired, blasting the upper platforms. The smugglers scrambled for safety, giving Ethan's crew the chance they needed. "Run," Ethan yelled. They sprinted up the ramp, blasting enemies as they went. Kayla stumbled, but Nia grabbed her arm and pulled her inside. As soon as they were aboard, Ethan slammed the door controls. "Titan X, get us out of here." "Affirmative." Activating thrusters. The Ironwind roared to life, rising into the air. Garrick, still on the platform, aimed his weapon and fired. A bolt of plasma hit the hull, but it was too late. The Ironwind blasted out of the station, escaping into space. Ethan collapsed into the pilot's chair, breathing hard. That was close. Valerie grinned. That was fun. Silvera rolled her eyes. You have a strange idea of fun. Kayla sat on the floor, holding the strange metallic cube. Ethan looked at her. So, what exactly did we just steal? Kayla's eyes were serious. I don't know, but I think it's something big. Ethan sighed. Of course it is. The Iron Wind streaked through space at high speed, leaving Smuggler's Haven behind. The ship's engines hummed, the controls steady under Ethan Carter's hands, but his mind was anything but calm. He glanced back at Kayla, the alien girl they had just rescued from Garrick Voss. She sat near the co-pilot's seat, gripping the mysterious metallic cube she had stolen. So, Ethan said, his voice tense, are you going to tell us what that thing is, or do we have to guess? Kayla hesitated, looking down at the object in her hands. The cube was covered in glowing alien symbols, pulsing with a faint blue light. It looked ancient, but at the same time, it hummed with hidden energy. I'm not sure, she admitted, but I know that Garrick wasn't the only one looking for it. Valerie leaned against the wall, arms crossed. What do you mean? Kayla took a deep breath. This cube, it's called a star core. It's an artifact from an ancient race that disappeared thousands of years ago. The reason Garrick wanted it is because it holds something powerful inside. Ethan frowned. Something powerful? Like what? Kayla shook her head. I don't know, but there are rumors that star cores hold the key to forgotten technologies, weapons, energy sources, even star maps to lost worlds. Nia, always curious about technology, was already scanning the cube with her wrist device. The energy readings are off the charts, Ethan. Whatever this thing is, it's not just an old relic. It's still alive. Ethan exhaled. Great. First, I buy a ship that turns out to be a hidden war machine, and now we're carrying some ancient superweapon. Silvera smirked. Sounds like your luck. Kayla suddenly looked nervous. There's something else. Everyone turned to her. Kayla gripped the cube tighter. The reason I stole this is because a galactic Dominion fleet is coming for it. Silence filled the cockpit. Ethan's stomach dropped. Did you just say Dominion? Kayla nodded. Yes. They tracked the cube to Smuggler's Haven, but they were moving slowly to avoid suspicion. Garrick thought he had time to sell it to the highest bidder. She looked at Ethan with urgency. But now that we have it, they'll come for us. Incoming threat. Ethan rubbed his forehead. This just keeps getting better. Silvera sighed. The Dominion doesn't mess around. If they think we stole something from them, they'll send everything they have to hunt us down. Nia's wrist device beeped. She quickly checked the screen, and her face paled. Guys, we might have a problem. Ethan turned sharply. Now what? Nia pointed to the ship's sensors. A massive ship signature had just appeared on the edge of their radar. It's a Dominion war cruiser. Ethan cursed under his breath. How far? Nia's fingers flew over the controls. It just dropped out of hyperspace, and it's heading straight for us. The chase begins. An urgent voice crackled over the ship's comm system. Unknown vessel, this is the Dominion cruiser Vengeance. You are carrying stolen property. Surrender immediately, or you will be fired upon. Ethan tightened his grip on the controls. Yeah, I don't think so. He punched the thrusters, and the Iron Wind shot forward, diving into the darkness of space. Behind them, the Dominion cruiser came to life. Bright beams of energy flashed through the void, barely missing the ship. They're locking on, Vale shouted. Silvera's fingers moved swiftly over the weapons system. Let me return the favor. The Iron Wind's turrets spun and fired, blasting plasma bolts toward the enemy ship. The shots hit their shields but barely scratched them. This is bad, Nia muttered. They're too strong. Ethan gritted his teeth. We need a way out. Kayla suddenly spoke. I think I know where we can go. Ethan looked at her. You'd better say it fast. She quickly pressed a sequence of symbols on the star core. The cube glowed brighter, and a holographic star map appeared in the air. Everyone stared. Valerie's eyes widened. Is that a hyperspace route? Kayla nodded. It leads to an old system on the edge of the galaxy. It's uncharted, so the Dominion won't be able to follow us easily. Ethan didn't hesitate. Send me the coordinates. Kayla transferred them to the ship's nav system, and Ethan punched the hyperspace drive. Behind them, the Dominion cruiser's weapons charged for a full strike. Come on, Ethan muttered. Just as the enemy ship fired, the Iron Wind jumped into hyperspace, vanishing into the unknown. A mysterious destination. The jump lasted only a few minutes, but when they exited, they were in a completely different part of the galaxy. The view outside was breathtaking. A blue nebula stretched across the sky, and in the distance, a massive dark planet loomed. Kayla stared at the planet in shock. It's real, she whispered. Ethan frowned. You know this place. She nodded slowly. This is Zephyr-7, the last known location of the ancient civilization that created the star cores. Everyone exchanged looks. Valerie grinned. Now this is getting interesting. Nia looked nervous. I just hope whatever's down there isn't worse than the Dominion. Ethan sighed. We'll find out soon enough. He guided the Iron Wind toward the planet, not knowing what secrets waited below. The Iron Wind descended through the thick atmosphere of Zephyr-7, its hull trembling as violent winds battered the ship. Outside, an eerie blue mist covered the land, stretching endlessly in every direction. Towering, jagged ruins pierced through the fog, remnants of an ancient civilization long forgotten. Ethan Carter gripped the controls tightly, his heart pounding. Well, this place looks welcoming. Kayla was staring at the ruins with wide eyes. I can't believe it. It's real. Valerie glanced at her. You've heard stories about this place, haven't you? Kayla nodded slowly. Only legends. The Zyphorians were a powerful race, but they vanished thousands of years ago. No one knows why. Silvera checked her blaster. Well, let's hope we don't find out the hard way. The ship landed on a flat stone platform, its landing gear kicking up dust. Ethan stood up and grabbed his pistol. All right, everyone stay close. We find out what this star core is, and we get out before the Dominion catches up. Nia checked her wrist scanner. I'm detecting a strong energy signature coming from that structure. She pointed at a massive pyramid-like building in the distance, half covered in vines and glowing blue symbols. Ethan sighed. Of course, it had to be a creepy ancient temple. The Temple of the Star Core. As they stepped outside, the air felt heavy, charged with some unseen force. The ground was solid stone, engraved with strange markings that seemed to pulse faintly as they walked over them. Valerie flexed her claws. I don't like this. Feels wrong. Kayla, however, was drawn toward the structure. No, it's guiding us. Silvera frowned. What do you mean? Kayla hesitated before speaking. I think the star core is reacting to this place. She held out the cue, and instantly, the glowing symbols on the temple walls flashed brighter. A low hum filled the air. Ethan exchanged a look with Silvera. Well, no turning back now. They reached the entrance, a massive stone doorway covered in symbols. As soon as Kayla stepped forward, the symbols rearranged themselves, forming an opening. The team stepped inside, their footsteps echoing. The walls were covered in holographic images, depicting tall, regal beings with glowing eyes. Some held star cores in their hands, while others seemed to be fighting something monstrous. Nia examined the carvings. This place isn't just a ruin. It's a message. Ethan walked ahead cautiously. Let's just hope it's not a warning. The truth of the star core. At the heart of the temple was a circular chamber with a raised platform. In the center, a large crystalline structure floated, pulsing with the same energy as Kayla's star core. The moment she stepped closer, the cube in her hands lifted into the air, drawn by the larger crystal. The energy in the room intensified. Kayla gasped. It's activating. Suddenly, a holographic figure appeared, a tall, ancient Zephorian, with piercing blue eyes and a flowing robe. It spoke in a deep, resonating voice. To those who have found this place, know this. The star cores are not weapons. They are keys. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Keys to what? The hologram continued. Long ago, we created the star cores to contain a great and terrible power. A force that could shape worlds, or destroy them. But the Dominion seeks to claim this power for themselves. If they succeed, no one will be able to stop them. Silvera tensed. So the Dominion knows what this is. Kayla shook her head. They don't fully understand it, but if they take the star cores, they'll find out. The hologram's voice turned grave. You must stop them. Take the star core far from here. Do not let it fall into the wrong hands. Then the light in the chamber dimmed, and the star core gently floated back into Kayla's hands. Ethan exhaled. Well, that answers that. Valerie cracked her knuckles. Now all we have to do is escape before the Dominion finds us. The Dominion arrives. As if on cue, Nea's wrist device beeped frantically. We've got incoming. Multiple ships. Ethan's stomach dropped. How long until they land? Nea's eyes widened. They're already here. A massive explosion rocked the temple as the ceiling cracked open. From above, Dominion dropships descended, and heavily armed soldiers rappelled down from the openings. Move, move, Ethan shouted, firing his blaster. Silvera took down 2 soldiers with precise shots, while Valerie lunged forward, using her strength to knock an enemy across the room. Kayla clutched the star core tightly as Nia pulled her toward the exit. We have to get back to the ship. The team fought their way through the ruins, dodging enemy fire as the Dominion forces pushed forward. Ethan turned to Kayla. Can you do anything with that thing? Kayla looked at the star core, then at the temple walls, then back at the star core. She closed her eyes and focused. Suddenly, the temple reacted. The glowing symbols on the walls flashed, and a shockwave of energy rippled outward, sending the Dominion troops flying backward. Ethan's jaw dropped. Okay, that's new. Kayla panted, looking down at the star core. I think I can control it. Silvera fired a shot at the last soldier and shouted, then let's use that power to get out of here. A daring escape. The team sprinted toward the Iron Wind, dodging enemy fire. Ethan fired at the closest Dominion trooper before diving into the pilot's seat. As the ship lifted off, Dominion fighters chased them, firing lasers across the sky. Hold on, Ethan shouted, pulling the controls. The Iron Wind spun sharply, dodging a missile that exploded just behind them. Nia shouted, we need to jump to hyperspace. Kayla looked at the star core, then at the nav system. I have an idea. She placed the cube into the ship's console. The ship shuddered as the star core's energy merged with the Iron Wind systems. Suddenly, a new hyperspace path appeared, one not on any map. Ethan's eyes widened. Is that a hidden route? Kayla nodded. It'll take us far away from Dominion space, but we have to go now. Ethan didn't hesitate. He punched the controls, and the Iron Wind shot into hyperspace just as the Dominion ships closed in. The last thing they saw before vanishing was the exploding ruins of Zephor 7, collapsing behind them. A new beginning. As the ship stabilized, everyone let out a breath of relief. Ethan turned to Kayla. Well, looks like we've got a bigger fight ahead of us. Kayla smiled slightly. Yeah, but now we have a chance to win. Silvera smirked. Sounds like an adventure. Valerie chuckled. I wouldn't have it any other way. The Iron Wind soared into the unknown, carrying its crew toward their next challenge, whatever it might be.